Is this watercolor?
No, this is all acrylic. I'm doing this all in acrylic to show you guys that you can use acrylic very much like watercolor if you're quick. And if you don't start out with your idea of your painting immediately, but to lay in a quiet tone and then build on it. So I'm going to show you a little at a time so that you have more control over the action of your color in relationship to your idea. And I'll do a little action painting at the end. This is all color. And I've been trying to get you guys to draw in color. So that's what I'm going to do today. Just show you it can be done, you know. Now I'm always trying to control the action of color against color as I plane it in. And I spread the tone throughout the painting so that any of it that I need, I always have a possibility of keeping it. Of course, one never knows until you start. Now, you see an action coming along the top, which is controlling the space right away. But this is just the start. This is just the action of the color against color. With any luck at all, it might work. I'm losing most of the white in order to develop a strong sense of the color in relationship to the paper. And it's not the paper in and of itself, it's how the color lays on it. And the white comes up through it in some places, opaque in others. So you begin to see the action and how that action helps for you to develop the space and the structure of your piece with more strength. Okay, that's finished. I can just sign it now. Now, the relationship of everything is the key. The control of the placement of the planes is very important because it helps you to establish the movement of your force in the painting. So now on top of here, we're going to lay in the next color with any luck, and then start from there. Okay, so now we have a tinted paper of a light blue. In other words, you never start off with too strong a color. You try to keep the color kind of medium or low key when you start, because that gives you the ability to change it. Because being creators, you will all of a sudden see your painting going in the wrong track and you'll need to wipe it out. So you have to have control of the paint so you can do that without losing the effect of the finish. And that's what we're going to play with today, with any luck at all. Okay, now I'll draw a shape in here. So I can take a form or an idea in the action of my line from anything. In other words, when I extract from something I see. And then I develop it, get away from the literal and break it right into the abstract energy, because really what's important is not the object, it's the action of the object to each other that my eye is being stimulated by. And that creates a stronger abstract concept, theoretically. And I'll steal it from different places. Very odd, isn't it? Now you can see, as this tone hits the plane, and the drawing comes out, everything changes. So the drawing is a simple line of subdued color. Nothing is strong, nothing is opaque yet, but it will be as it dries. colors in and of themselves don't change by themselves. They change according to the concept of layering. As you layer, the idea of the color becomes a little richer and a little stronger. Now, this should have a green tint because it's mixing into a light blue. And I break any identity as quick as I can because I'm abstracting. I do not want to be worrying about what it is. I want to worry about the action of the color against color and how that's reacting to the plane that it's in. And what can I do to give it more strength or to weaken it in some place, make it stronger in others. So I'm always forcing you guys to look across the plane. This is sliding behind. This will start coming forward eventually, with any luck. And I'll show you what I mean. I'll do something really silly here. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Excuse me. Thank you very much. So let me kick this blue up, make it a point of the painting. Okay, I hate those drips. Now, the point of this is to show the light blue to the deeper blue, and it's the deeper blue, not darker, deeper, more opaque, that gives it its action. This blue is ahead of that blue. It's all blue, it's just different tints and tones. So you begin to understand you can throw a blue up there and then kick it around a little bit, different dimensions, different shifts, and then we'll see what we get. See if I can kick up some of the action in here. To get an idea of a shift and a movement. Pretty simple. The thing you get attracted to is not the action of the painting, but the relationship of the color. Where it's losing less light, where it's gaining more light, your eye begins to adjust, hopefully. Well, we'll see what happens. One never knows, you know. Okay, now I'm going to use the idea very quickly, which nobody else does but me. I'm going to bring some of the white forward just a little bit. When I throw a tone into here, it excites this action and shifts and moves these colors back and forth. Overlapping is the way you push-pull your form nearer the eye or away from the eye to create tension as you move across the plane. Now, some of you guys know this pretty well because I watch you do it every day, you know. A guy asked me, how do you teach so many students? I said, I have a lot of good painters. I don't have to work hard. As long as I can keep you guys in here, I can retire, you know. Now, we will shift it across the plane so it isn't all in one action. Everything can be reduced into a position. The action and strength of it can be changed by the relationships that you use in and around it. See how simple that is? Nothing to it.
Putting that white on,
yeah,
push the light blue back.
Just a little bit. So you're playing in just moments, see? Now, there's some painters that want to get more three-dimensional, then things get heavier. We'll play a little bit with that at the end. Now I'm going to play this at the bottom. That's thinner than I want. Thank you very much. There we go. And if I keep a rhythm, an action against things, they're not as boring as if I run them vertical, vertical, horizontal, horizontal. In other words, you're trying to get a little tension or a lot of tension as you're working. You don't get tension with straight vertical lines or straight horizontal lines. You get them with action. That gives you more direct tension between your forms, and that's what you need. Almost every painter. I've seen a lot of good painters, and some of them think they can get away with not doing that, and they don't. Okay, horizontal, horizontal. Okay, now, well, that's insane. Very good. Okay. Now I'm going to play with another color, if I can. Just a second here. Thank you very much.
Red.
Yeah, that's spooky, isn't it? You throw a red anywhere, you're in trouble.
I love red. You know I love red.
Red is a pain in the ass, I want to tell you. But it's a color we all tend to play with, so I'll work it up there. Now I like to put a little bit of the gesso in the color right away. Even when I'm just drawing with it or playing with it, I want it to have a mix, because as it dries, that mix helps the color retain its strength. Because if you notice, a lot of you guys, when you finish an acrylic, you look at it the next day, everything's dead. It's because there's no energy in the color. So you have to kind of mix. Same thing in oil painting. I mix the oil with my medium all the time, so that as it dries, it stays a little richer. Theoretically, some colors just refuse to cooperate. What?
Just parenthetical. What medium do you use with oil? What medium?
I use a lean medium, usually the entire painting, which is 1 part Damar, 1 part terpenoid, and 1 part oil, whatever oil you choose.
Even cooking oil?
Well, not cooking oil, but safflower, walnut, linseed. Most of your commercial oil paint, if you read, is made with safflower oil, because safflower oil doesn't yellow, and it tends to dry a little quicker. Here's the problem. It also has a tendency to break up a little bit, so be careful. So I tend to use a little walnut oil in some mixes if I'm working on a panel, and I tend to use, I go back to linseed if I'm making a mix, because I like the linseed, even, I don't care if it does yellow, it helps my color. You know?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going to cut and slash a little bit, see what happens. With any luck at all, it'll look like a painting at some point. And I haven't finished with the deep blue yet. Now using this, what I call as an accent color, you can see how the red is so strong it comes at you very quick. So now you have to adjust that red as you're painting if you want to hang on to a cooler painting with the instant relationship to the red. And we're going to play with the red back and forth as we go along to see what we end up with. I mean, we always got the other side, you know. My goodness. What, can't I do anything wrong? Jesus Christ, what's wrong with you? Okay, I'm putting stuff on here so we can paint it out. Show you that that's possible. Okay, that's dead center, which isn't going to help. So we kick it over. Push that back, under here, forward there. Down lower. Okay, now we're starting to get ochre. Now you notice the green yellow was starting to slide behind because the strength of red will push it away. In order to get it up, you have to be very tricky, which I am. And you always start with the white, which does two things. It dilutes the red a little bit and allows you to throw a color on top that'll hesitate, will make it play. The saving of the event. Sometimes it takes us a few minutes, but we can do it. If I can find a brush. Okay, here we go. Strength is the trick to everything in color. In other words, I'm overworking this quite a bit, but you're seeing the result. Look at the position of the red. Struggling. It's because of the action of the two colors. Most of you are better painters in this, so you don't have to worry. And wiping out or diminishing an idea or building an idea all begins with the white. It is the white that makes the difference. Without the white paint, the color will die. You need that white for the color to come up through it. In other words, you're taking the white and replacing the paper with it as you're building the paint. And that gives you your interaction as the light penetrates through, bounces back. If I want to pull that yellow up, less green, I have to build the opacity of the color. Now take a look at this area against that area. Makes a big difference as you work in your color. Now, if I want to play with that a little bit, I can, but it's the position that's the most important. And the more I paint, the less of the real world exists. It becomes a relationship of the colors interacting with each other. Pretty simple. Now, if I'm going to keep this tone, I have to pull it forward. I keep telling you guys that. You don't want to mark on a mark. Whenever you throw your color down, you start pulling those colors against each other all the way from the ground up. And we'll do that here, hopefully, if we're lucky. Okay, here we go. Let me make this a little richer, just a little bit, not too much. every time I throw a color in here, I make it a little more opaque, it pushes everything else into a different direction. It is the direction of the paint that you're after. Without that direction, the painting becomes a simple decoration for the wall. But you can see it's that this color with a little more opacity pulls it towards your eye. You start to get more interesting in the force as you're working in and out of the painting, rather than just one arena, hopefully. So let me run this against that, underneath, behind, pull that up a little bit. Now, if you notice, when I threw this in against the red and the yellow got sharper. It automatically feels brighter. It's a relationship of the optics as your eye mixes things. In other words, painters know two things. The first thing is everything you paint depends on the light you're painting in. The next thing is the degree of the color you use in relationship to each other to create stimulation. Because everything is entering the eye of the viewer and then from there to the brain. Now, some people will literally hate whatever pigment you use because that's the way they're raised. You push those guys to one side and you reach for those that accept what you're doing, because you can't paint for everybody. Don't ever think that's true, because it isn't. You're always painting for a selected audience that is really living inside you. You have a communication automatically. There's a certain struggle or a certain action in your life, but something in them is relating and they're beginning to see things in your painting that excites them. That's the one you're after. The rest don't count. The rest go to somebody else, you know. Now, let me get this thing huddled down a bit. Don't want it to be too strong, you know. Keep it under here. Let it run even here across the green there. You can see how I'm playing with it and how the action really works very well with what's underneath. And as we play with this, we begin to get stimulated by the relationship of all the colors before we wipe it out, you know. Oh my goodness, look at that. There we go. Okay, now all the colors seem to be shifting and moving and dancing into a different position, and that's kind of what you want your painting to do at some point, hopefully, before we wipe it out. We'll wipe it out and then see what we start over, I think. Now I use simple geometry whenever I do these things because they're the easiest to develop and the easiest to get people to understand that when you're abstracting, you don't need a lot of activity. You just need placement. You need the action of the light and the movement of the shapes. That's the most important part of your work. If you do a really strong shape, that's good too, but it's not the only one. You can take a big shape and then start cutting, slicing. It's kind of what I did here. But the reality is that as you're working that paint, you're working it up to the slow end of the piece to where the strength of the colors start to shimmer against each other. And once you got that, you got a painting. And acrylic, it's much easier than oil. And here's the reason. Oil takes more time. That's simple. I can do this. I could never do this in oil. If I tried this in oil, I would have mud within 3 seconds. I have to let each layer dry. No matter how thin I paint it, it's got to dry because it will mix. So you have to relax a little bit when you're working in oil. So I'm always working the medium and the water a little bit, not too much in this color because I want it to be the strongest as we work up, if we're lucky. This back on, thank you very much. Okay, you guys take a break because we got to let this dry before I wipe it out. Color, the cool and the warm colors are separate. The warm colors start flying at you, the cool colors disappear. In the action where it's overlapped in that, there's a push-pull, a constant action because they're close. So that kind of tells you when you're working with warm colors, be real careful where your cool colors are and how you're going to work with it. I threw that red on there deliberately because you can see it's starting to fade because it's sitting on a blue ground and it starts to get a little less energy as it dries. The drier it gets, the less energy it has. That's why you can't be in too big a hurry to finish a piece. But we're going to wipe out 2/3 of this. And what the hell, it's only a piece of paper. You know. Now the first thing I'm going to do is push some of the warm colors back. Now look what happens to the white, and look at how much brighter this area will get as this starts getting diminished. Now as this dries, the white won't be as strong, I don't think, but we can cover it if we want to. No, you gotta remember, this is a demo, it's not a masterpiece. You know? It's a action of information. With any luck at all, you'll get some.
Is that gesso? Is that
Yeah, it's just gesso. Cheapest white you got.
oil?
In oil, I use oil priming white.
Oil priming.
Yeah, it's fast drying and it works well. I'm gonna pull that yellow behind there. I didn't want that white to do that, but it did. Nasty little bastard. Yeah. Here we go. So, by throwing the white in this particular area, this is still sitting back here. If I want that to come forward, I have to overlap it here. But the yellow has gotten brighter. So it depends. Each painter's a little different, but it depends. If the painter's looking at this, they may want it, when that dries, to dull that white, because that yellow, because it's too bright and stopping the eye from traveling. Because your action is the whole painting, not just an area of the painting. So you always think in those terms. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna push this red further back. So the white is traveling like a color now in relationship to the blues and greens and yellows. It's a neutral. So everywhere it goes, it calms the color down a little bit and lets the two colors work alone. That's the thing of white. If you use black, everything gets excited. Now, I'm going to run across here. Of course, I had to make a big problem for myself by putting this red up here, but I thought you'd get more if I did. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna pull this blue up, but I gotta white it out first and then bring the blue back. With any luck at all, it'll happen. Okay, now by pulling that white up, I'm playing a lot against this transition of small warms against a large cool. And the opacity of this, hoping this opacity of this, I can control it. If I can't, I just take out what is unnecessary. So let me pull this over further, pushing that yellow back quite a bit. Run that blue back up to the top. In other words, I'm using this white to pull the surface color up to a different position. And if you notice, that surface color, which is this color, is now coming forward as I work the action up. And it's the layering. But you have to understand color. Whenever you're changing the position of something, you got to throw the white in there, because the white will help you relate to the color coming. If you don't, you'll get a heavy texture one on top of the other, and then you're fighting your color all the time you're painting, and then you really get upset. Now some of you, the next demo I do of this thing, I'm going to do an action painting in watercolor, which is kind of interesting. Okay, now let me run this down. Softening this whole value here, and then running the blue on it. Now watch. So by cleaning that up, the action dries up to the center and to the right. Because I have some action in here is a little smaller in relationship to that, you're getting a push-pull. And that's just simple maneuvering, theoretically. Okay, now, here's what we'll do. We'll see if we can correct it by changing the action of the red. Now I'm going to put red back on top to show the strength of the white. That's getting rather insane, don't you think? Okay, here we go. Okay, let's do something really weird. How am I going to do that? Okay, here we go. Let me pull this up stronger. Over here. I'm showing you the cleanliness of the yellow as it hits that white. Son of a gun. Isn't that amazing? I almost have a painting if I'm not careful, you know. Now, if I don't screw it up, I can't teach you anything. So, we'll go to the next step. Kick the red up.
Frank, you say this, what you just did is the weir option?
Yeah.
Well, so why?
Because I started with a cool palette. I'm ending with an adjustment of a warm color, And I'm pushing it on a white to get the beauty and the clarity of that yellow and not letting the cool color make it green. See what I'm doing? I'm real tricky. You have to watch every minute.
So you're really combining the different colors. So like you're taking the yellow and the blue and the white and you're using combinations of those colors on the palette.
That's right. That's right. And I'm not veering off into oranges and pink. I'm not getting into that. That's another painting. So you try, in other words, you try to get a single idea. Every time I do this, if you guys know, if you go through all my videos, each painting is a different palette because I'm trying to get you to understand that color has its own strength and weakness. And you have to live within that strength and weakness of that particular color and figure out how it's going to work within the shape against shape or action against action. So you can stimulate a color by doing something like that next to it, which stimulates the energy of this color, which is coming from the ground up. Now, the other thing I'm trying to get you to see is I don't put it on the surface and leave it. I push that mark back and forth inside that surface so that the whole surface becomes the action of your idea, rather just a mark on it, which can be done, but only two colors. The ground and the color you put on it, and that's it. Very flat. Which is okay, I guess, you know. Now, let me see what I got here. Oh, yes. Okay, now. Let me throw that in there. Stop that. Now it gets tricky. As I play around with the cool color again, one never knows. Now you know why I hate drips. Huh?
Is that medium that you just put on?
Yeah. In other words, you play with the idea of this color because you're trying to control the space in the painting. You don't want the painting to leap at you like a galloping horse. You want it to interact. The energy and the power of the eye and the mind. You want that to happen. So the interactions become very important with any luck at all. Well, it's starting to feel different. Painting is beginning to breathe. The breath is giving it a different attitude. It's moving away from me into another aspect. Somewhere in my brain, something's happening. I don't know what. All right, now the last step. Here we go. And with any luck at all, it'll actually work. Of course, you never know. Oh, they love me, don't they? Okay, here we go. What I'm doing is pushing this red to a different action to show that it can be done If you keep it and its location correct, you'll be okay. Hopefully. Now there's the red, back intervening with everything else, making it harsher. Well, that's the attitude of the painter. Each painter's different. Another painter say, I don't like that, and they take it out. Each painter has a decision to make according to their work. The one thing I read by Hoffman, because I read him a lot. I do that every Thursday. I get the big book and I spend an hour going through it and I pull out some of his conversations. The one conversation that intrigued me the most was he said, no artist can contradict another artist's painting because we are all individuals looking for a sensibility. And I said, that's true. But he doesn't do that. What he says, the action of the whole and how it works is important to the essence of the painter's idea. So if the structure is weak, then the painting dissolves and becomes a decoration. So that's the battle. What are you going to take out? What are you going to keep? You have to know before you start the painting what your mass is, and then you work with that. With any luck at all. Okay, now, since I beat the hell out of this, we're going to go with the white again, take out a bunch of stuff and see what happens. Yeah, and I'm pretty good, I must say. Okay, here we go. Oh my goodness, what did I do that for? Now I'm working with a neutral in a half damp paint, so little areas of the color comes up as a tone. But I'm trying to get the action of the painting to be stronger by reducing the elements within each area into a different position. And with any luck at all, we end up with a painting. Of course, you never know. But that's the beauty of having two sides. Oh, here we are. Son of a gun. Okay. Now, you can feel the energy of each color pushing and pulling against each other to create a whole. That's what you want a painting to do. You don't want it to be just single. In other words, it's like life. Life is not single. Life is an action against an action, sometimes clumsy, sometimes clean, sometimes exciting, sometimes sad. That's what a painting does. A painting reflects those actions. I seem to be in a good mood, you know. I don't know why, but I am. Okay, let me just play with this because it annoys me. There we go. There we go. Okay. So I have not allowed any color to stay in one position, which has helped to build the whole action of movement. We'll see when we unveil it, see what happens. And if you guys have time, we'll do the other side. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, there you go. See, now you got more information than you need. Okay, when that dries, I'll do an action thing on the back. You guys take a break, we gotta let it dry. And I'm gonna do it in color. You guys do it in black and white. So. Now, as you see, I do everything the same. Whether it's an action painting, a regular painting, or what, I start with a low tint. I never start with the opaque because I may want to take some of it out. So if I want to take some of it out, I'll show you what happens. With any luck at all. So I can take an action painting and make it look like a real painting by simply pulling the color in different position. And then strengthening it later if I feel like it. Now we're going to do the knife next, which will be interesting, theoretically. Let's see what happens. So in an action painting, the accidents that happen hopefully make the whole surface more interesting. You don't know what's going to happen, it just happens. Now painters tend to do this a lot before they start painting because it gives them more strength in developing their shapes. And I wish we had a lot of time, I could do a shape from this. Now, there is an action painting.
Frank, when you just did that, did you have anything in mind where you were going?
No,
with it?
just rhythm. In other words, when I'm doing an action, I think in rhythm. I hear a piece of music in my head, and I work with that. If you don't have that, you don't start. In other words, often I'll go to the studio and I will do things like this on sheets of paper. Until I get this kind of action and movement, I don't start painting. Because my first action is usually this, or this, which is too rigid, too tight. I have to get the hand, the wrist, the mind, and the eye working. Once they start to work, they're blending together, making a statement, and that's at the end of the work. But it takes time, there's no hurry. You guys are in a class, so you have a tendency to feel pressure of time. You gotta dismiss that. You got to get rid of that pressure and look at the action within. Because you're all good painters. Stop and take a look at your work. Look at our show. That was the most impressive show I've had in years. Because every painter up there was an individual struggling to develop a sound or a sense of paint and color. It was beautifully done. And everyone within degrees of action. And that's what's valuable. Everything else in painting has already been done. You're not going to do anything new. So live with your personality. Let your explanation build on the action structure that goes all the way back to the 1400s. Don't dismiss it, theoretically.
Frank, question. You referred to music a moment ago. Is there any one composer that you think of when you...
I use Beethoven a lot.
Beethoven.
You bet, because Beethoven is very distinct. He did a piece where you hear, which is a bunch of horses in his mind. I read it, because he went deaf. In his head, he fell in love with this one woman who married his best friend, naturally. So he stayed with that action and that emotion in him and built it. It's powerful work. And you have to understand, guys like Monet and other painters, other composers took from him. Now, the other one that I read a lot was a lady who was a nun who wrote music in the 12th century, Lichtenstein. She was incredible.
Lichtenstein?
Yeah, she had this 12 tone, she had the 12 tone music, and I used to listen to it constantly. They did a whole week of her on the radio, and I just went nuts because you could see the horses going over the hills, and the nuns were following her. And the priest in that let her compose because she was remarkable. She used to do plays and all this stuff. She was just a hell of an artist. And you can find her if you look around the 12th century. She'll come up. Okay, now I'm gonna beat the hell out of this a second. Watch. This is all action. There's no thought. If we're lucky, we may get something. We never know. The action painting is a painting to help you evolve. You don't give a damn what happens on the paper. You say, well, what am I doing? Why did I do that? What's wrong with me? And then you get those questions out of the way and just paint. So now I'll pull this by pushing the red back to its foreground every once in a while. And always in action, nothing precise. See what's happening? That push-pull against that green creates a stimulation without a whole lot of effort. And then we'll play here. Okay, now I'm going to leave that alone, let that show up, and then we'll take the white, beat the hell out of it. I need some clean water. It's what happens when you work on it too fast. But this is the back of the other one, so you got a choice. I had a guy buy one of these, and he hung both sides so he could spin it and he's in different rooms. No plan, no action, just a moment that you're working. That's simple. And then push-pulling the color and leaving it alone. And there's your painting. Thank you. Let's pull it off and see what happens. Oh, look at that. Took the paper. Oh, I like that. Here we go. Thank you.